Hello beautiful people, welcome back to another Flutter tutorial, and today we are going to be building up our Tippy tip calculator. Okay, and the goal of today is to try and build out the UI, and maybe the implementation or the functionality would be in a separate video. So let's get started. I have the default counter app. I have just cleared out the comments. Okay, nothing new over here. So a few things I would like to just tweak around. So of course this is not a Flutter demo, so this is going to be our Tippy. And then the next thing I'll do is get rid of this class, so everything goes away. And I'll change this to just homepage, and I'll get rid of this title. And then let's go ahead and create this homepage. So we are going to create a stateful widget, so STF. So we are going to use these awesome Flutter snippets. So tab key, and then all we have to do is type in the name, so homepage, just like so. Okay, so now we can go ahead and then start working on our app. So the first things first, I want to return a scaffold. So instead of a container, let's scaffold our app like so. So let me just save this and we get that. And then within our scaffold, I'm going to change the background colors to a slightly less white color. So let's get the background color property, and we are going to use a custom color. And the way you do that in Flutter is you type in color, not colors, but color this time, and then you provide a hex code. Now the default starting values are 0xFF, and whatever you provide becomes your color. So you have a hex code is basically from 0 to F. Okay, so if I enter 1, 2 here, 3, 4 here, and then maybe 5, 6 here, this would give me whatever that color is. Okay, so these two values stands for red, these two values stands for, if I can select them, green, and these two values stand for blue, so RGB. Okay, so the custom color I would be using here is going to be, so after the two F's, I'm going to have another F, 8, FFFD. Okay, it doesn't have to be an uppercase character. Okay, it doesn't have to be, but it's just a habit. Okay, when I save this, you should see it's not really, doesn't make any big difference. Okay, all right, so now that we have the color out of the way, we can go ahead and add an app bar. So let's call the app bar constructor. And in the app bar, just as you saw, we have a property called leading. Okay, and this leading, let me just type it in so that we can see what it is. So I'm going to go with an icon button, and in this icon button it requires an icon, so I'm going to go with icon in the bracket icons. So always remember that dot menu, and then let's go ahead and give it a size of, let's say 30. I think that will do for the icon size. And then let's give it a color, so color of colors dot white. Okay, that is one. And now outside of the, if I can get this out of the way, so back into the icon buttons, we want to provide the unpressed functionality. So unpressed, so this is just a function that runs when you press the icon menu. Oops. Okay, so now let me save this, and then we get this guy right here. Okay, now one more thing I want to change is the overall theme color. So you can see this says the primary swatch is blue. I'm going to change this to green, and then save this so that we can have this green color right here. I might probably end up changing that later on, if not probably now, but then let's just work with that and then see how far we go. All right, so now that we have our menu, okay, that's this guy here. So we use an icon button and not just an icon, because maybe sometime in the future we might want to click on this to trigger out a drawer or something or any other thing. Okay, so outside of the icon button but still inside the app bar, we are going to call in our title property, and this is going to take in a text, and this text is going to say Tippy. Okay, just like that. And then we also want to center this title, so this is going to be true, just like this. And when we save this, we see Tippy right here. Okay, now before I go on, I want to introduce you to the concept of working with packages. All right, so now in Flutter you would probably be using an array of packages as you build your applications to help speed up certain things. You don't have to always write every code all the time, so you would want to head on to pub.dev, and this is where you can find all the awesome packages developed by awesome people, okay, to help some of us. So over here, the package and only package I'm going to be using in this application is Google Fonts. Okay, I want to make use of Google Fonts. I don't really like the default fonts, and there's a total process of adding in your own fonts, and we'll get to that in a later tutorial. But for now, we are looking at how to work with packages. So once you get here, all you have to do is search the name of your package. So in our case, it is Google Fonts. Okay, I'm going to hit enter. Now we can see this is exactly what we want, the first option. Now you can also see the likes, the pub points, and then the popularity of the package that you are looking for. Okay, so that can help you figure out which package you should probably use. And then we are going to select Google Fonts. Now that we are here, we can see a little bit about how to use it, how we should go about and then work with it. And then you can read all of these to see all of the functionalities and properties that are in there. Now we have a section that talks about installing, so how to install this. So we would like to add this line to our pubspec.yaml file. Okay, so I'm going to Control and then C to copy that, and then we head on back to our Flutter and then go into the pubspec.yaml file, and then we are going to scroll on to where we have dependencies. Okay, so right under dependencies over here, I'm going to paste this option. Now make sure it is not in the same line, so I'm going to tab in one so that it's in the same line with Flutter but not in the same line with dependencies. That's something you really have to take note of. Okay, and once we've done that, we can simply hit this button. Okay, it's even doing it automatically for me, but you just have to hit this button to actually get the package. This is more like you are now downloading the Google Fonts into your application so that your application recognizes it and you can use it. Okay, and then when we head on back, when we want to use it, we need to import this package, so we can simply copy this. Okay, and then we can head on back to our app. So I can close, you know what, I'll leave this for the meantime, and I can go to the very top and then I'll paste that import statement. Okay, and then to use it, if we go back to the documentation, there's an example right here, and if we look through the example and try to see, we can see that after a text widget, the style property of the text widget, we can say what, call Google Fonts, mention the name of the font that we want, and then within it we can perform some stylings like font style and other things. Okay, so we are going to use the same idea. We're going to follow suit. So back in here, after Tippy, which is a text widget, we would also call in style, just like that, and then I can call Google Fonts, as you can see, and I'm going to use a font called Lobster. Okay, just like that, and I'm going to save this. Now with some packages, when you put them in, you would have to probably restart the application for it to kick in, but in our case we don't have to. As you can see, this has totally changed. Now I'm going to show you another way of doing this, and this is from an extension we installed. So if you don't remember that video, please check it out. I'll leave it somewhere at the top right corner there. So if we go back to the pubspec.yaml and actually delete this, okay, and then let me actually save this so that we run pub.get again. So we don't have that anymore. If we open up our command palette by pressing Ctrl+Shift+P or clicking on this gear and then command palette, we can look for pubspec assist. So right here, if you are not seeing it within here, just search pubspec assist. So something like this, pubspec. Make sure you've installed this extension though. Okay, make sure you come here and then you search for pubspec, and then you should find it and then install. As you can see, I have it installed. So back to our command palette. So once you search pubspec assist, all you need to do is type in the package name. So you can see an example on there. So I'm going to type in Google Fonts again. So Google Fonts, just like this, and hit enter. Now it finds different versions, so it's asking me which one, and we know it's this very top one. So just have a look at our dependencies right here. So I'm going to click this, and notice how it added it. I didn't do anything. Okay, that just adds it and then gets it, adds it to our packages, does everything for us. Okay, and it even runs pub.get for you. You don't have to really bother about doing that. Okay, and now you can see our error is gone and we still can use this. Okay, so inside this bracket we can go ahead and set up our font size, our font weight, and our color. So the font size, which I can just access by typing F or FS, okay, and then I'm going to give it a font size of 30. I'm going to give it a font weight of fontweight.bold, and then I'm going to give it a color of white. I believe it's already white, right? So there's no need, but you know what? Let's just be extra sure. So color, so colors dot white. I may change this colors, but let's just go with it. It's looking too white for my liking, but anyway, let's move on with that. Let me just simply put in a comma here and then break this down. Right, now we can head on to the body of our scaffold. So in the body aspect here, we would want to return a column. And remember, a column takes children. And the first child of our column is going to be a text widget. And this text widget is going to say enter bill amount. And then we are going to style this. So style property. And then we're going to go with our Google fonts. And here I'm going to use Roboto, not Rockwell. And then inside this, we are going to go with a custom color. So color, and then we are going to go with color, and then 0xFF. So always remember 0xFF is a constant value. And then we are going to go with a 9EA1A1. Okay, we are going to go with this grayish looking color. And then after this color, we are going to go with let's say a font size, not font weight, but a font size of about let's work with 25 for now and see what this is looking like. I think that's okay. That's perfect. Then after that, we need to enter another child, and for this child we are going to go ahead and then look at a new widget which we've never used, a text form field. And to do this, I'm going to use the overpowered widget in Flutter, a container. I'm going to wrap that in a container. So what I'll do here is I'll type in container, and then in the container I'm going to give this container a width of about 200, and then the child of this container is going to be a text form field. And if I go ahead and save this, you notice we have this text field right here where we can click and then we can type certain things here. But you notice it's quite close to this, so I'm going to give this some spacing. So the way we give spaces in Flutter is to simply use another widget. Everything in Flutter is a widget called a sized box, and this size box can take a height and a width. So in this case I'm trying to provide a vertical space, so that will be a height, and this height we are going to go with something, let's say 15. And then since this is just a single thing, I don't want it to wrap, so I'll just take that off. I'm gonna save this, and you can see that moves down a little bit. That looks a lot better than before. Now in this text form field we are going to enter in a whole lot of properties. So one of the first properties I'm going to go ahead and do is the style property. This is going to style how the text in this is going to look like. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is call my Google fonts, and then I'll still use the same Roboto. I think I'll be using Roboto throughout. I'm not going to change it, so that's a given. And then I'm going to go with a font size. What's going on? Oh, made a mistake. So I'm going to go with a font size of about 30, and I'll go with a font weight of bold. So font weight dot bold, just like so. Scroll this a little bit up so that you can see, and I'll save this. Okay, and then still inside the text form field but outside of the Google form, I'm going to come out, and the next thing I'll show you is how to set the type of keyboard that shows up. So when I click in here, you notice the type of keyboard that shows out here, the default regular keyboard. So the next property to change that is the keyboard type right here. And again, if you're always confused what to put in here after you select the property, just place your pointer here. VS Code will try to help you. So look at the type here. This says text input type. So basically call text input type. Okay, use the dot operator and you can specify whatever type you are looking for. Okay, so what we want is a number type because it's numbers we are going to be entering. So just like that, I'll go ahead and then save that. And then when I click in here, that hasn't yet taken effect. So let's see if we have to reload this completely. And then now let's click in here, and now you see we have our numbers right there. Okay, so that's how you can do that. The next property is I would want to align this. I don't like it being from the left, so I want to align it in the center. So we have a property called text align, and we can check this again if we are not sure. So this takes a text align. Okay, so just like that, we would call text align dot center. Did I misspell something? Yes, I did. So we want to pass in center right here, and when we save this, we can see our text, the cursor is now in the center. Okay, now one of the very important properties here is called a decoration. Okay, and if you place our pointer here, you can see this takes an input decoration. Okay, so it doesn't always mean that'll always be the situation, but 90% of the time that's it. So we go ahead and put in an input decoration, and then this input decoration will give us access to a whole lot of properties to customize this text form field. Okay, a whole lot of properties. So one of the first properties I would like to put is a hint text. So this is what the user would see to sort of help them figure out what they are actually supposed to be typing in there. For example, if I say something like first name, as you see in certain forms. So for example, if I save this, you see something like first name, or you can see password or email, those kind of things. Okay, that's not what we want. We want to put in a value, let's say 100.0, something like that. So the user node is supposed to enter something like that. Now we want to also attach our currency, so the dollar symbol. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my dollar, but notice something weird is happening here. Now there is something called string interpolation, which allows you to combine a variable and then strings together. Okay, so we normally use this character and the variable to do that. So this is a special character in Flutter. Now Flutter thinks we are trying to do something like that, so it is getting confused. The way we try to tell Flutter that, you know what, I actually just want the dollar symbol, I'm not doing any string interpolation, is we place our pointer at the beginning just before the dollar, and then we escape it by using a backslash, like so. So this is telling Flutter that, you know what, this is just a regular dollar symbol, don't use it as any interpolation. I know this looks weird, but it's one of those things. Okay, so if we save this now, you would notice we have our dollar symbol there. Feel free to change this to whatever currency that you use. Okay, and then so now that we have our hint text, we can also go ahead and then specify the border. So I want this to have a border around it, just like you see with regular forms. And if we put this here, this takes in an input border. Okay, so this is one of those situations where it doesn't really work like that. So the property we are looking for here is an outline input border. Okay, and inside this property we would want to set up our border radius. So the border radius property, which takes in a border radius, and then we want a circular one, and then let's say 10, just the third bit subtle. Okay, so save this, and you notice how we have now this rounded border, and we can see the border radius affecting it right there. Okay, and yeah, I think for now that is done, that part is done. So we can move on to the next part. And so still within our column but outside of our container, we need some space. So let's get in some size box here, and we'll get in a height of let's say 15. I think that should be okay. And then inside here we are going to put in another text. So we have another text widget here, and this text widget here is going to say choose tip. And then again, I'm going to style it just similar to this. So I'm just going to do some copy and paste. I mean, there's no point typing that again. And then I'll just change all that I need to change here. So font size here, let's make this 25. Do I want this to be bold? No. So I don't want this to be bold either. And I want to use the same color I use for this. So I'm going to grab this color, and then I'll dump this in here. So I'll paste this in right here. And then when I save this, we can see we have this choose tip. Okay, I think that's good to go. So now we are done with that text, and now we are going to look at toggle buttons. Okay, so for us to insert our toggle buttons, I am going to wrap that in a container widget. So container. So in this container widget, I'm going to just focus on the child, and the child here is going to be toggle buttons. Now this toggle buttons has some required properties. It requires an isSelected property, and it requires children. Okay, so first off, I'm going to put in the isSelected property. Now, if you go ahead and read this, basically the is selected property here corresponds to the selection state of each toggle button. Okay, so normally you want to assign your values here, so whether it's true or false. So depending on the number of toggle buttons that you have. So the way I'm going to go ahead and do this is I'll go to the top here, okay, and I'm going to create a list, and this list is going to be a list of Boolean values. So remember, a Boolean is just either true or false, so bool, and I'm going to call this for lack of a better name, maybe selected. An underscore over here simply means it's a private field. Okay, don't worry about when you say something is private, what it means. So a list, anytime you create a list, you need to specify the type. Okay, and a list is denoted by a square bracket. Type simply means that this name here, okay, let me say it this way. Let me start like this. A variable, okay, is just a space we declare in memory. A variable, just picture a variable as a container in which you can store something, but that container can change whatever contents would be stored inside. So whatever value you put inside can change later on. That's why it's called a variable. A list is a special type of variable, if I can put it that way, okay, in simpler terms, that can store more than one value. A variable can store only one value at a time. So let's say you have a class of 20 students and you want to record their marks. You would have to create 20 separate variables for each student. But if you're using a list to store the scores, then all you have to do is create a list. You ignore the type for the meantime. Create a list, call it scores, and then assign the score values inside. You don't have to create 20 list values. You just create one and then you store it. Okay, so a list is a special type of variable, if I can put it that way, that can store multiple values. So inside here, the first value I want to store is going to be true, and then the remainder are going to be false, and then I think I need another false. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then I'll head on back down to this. So you notice this is expecting a list. I could have put the true, and all of that in there, but it's not really a good practice, by the way. So I'm going to remove this and then replace it with the list we created, which is called selected. Okay, just like that. I hope my explanation wasn't too confusing. Again, don't worry if that was confusing. We would fix all of that. Like I said, after this, so I would create separate videos explaining some of these little things that are quite necessary for us to understand. And then the next thing here I would provide is the children property. Now the children property here should be the same as the number of selected properties you have here. Okay, that is selected. So remember, I have 4. Okay, if I go ahead and then put less than 4, I'm going to have a problem. Now the last thing after this I'm going to do is have the what is the name of that property? Unpressed. So again, when we press the button, what do we want to happen? Okay, now this unpressed takes an integer value and we can call this anything we want. So let's call this the selected index for the meantime. Okay, I'm going to save this and you notice our app crashes. Just like I said, there is selected. So remember this, we said we are going to give 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So the number of children should also correspond to the number, and we have nothing here, and that's why it is complaining. Okay, so the way I'm going to go ahead and do that is I'm going to go ahead and then create a a text widget, and this text widget is just going to display our first value of, let's say, 10%. Okay, and then a comma. Now I'm going to hold down the shift and alt key and then just duplicate that. So 2, 3, 4, And now let's save this, and you notice how we get everything showing. Okay, and you can see these are the default colors because of our background theme color. We will change all of these for the meantime. Now, another thing I would like to do is sort of give these some padding, okay, so that it looks a little bit spacious. The way I'll do that is I need to wrap each one of these in a padding widget, and to do that, that will mean I have to do that for each. So just to cheat a little bit, I'm going to get rid of these, and I'm going to wrap this in padding. So I'm going to click on the text widget, hold the Control and period key, and then I'm going to wrap this with a padding of the default 8.0. okay, and then now all I'll do is I'll just copy this padding widget. Let me see, can I use the same trick? So Shift Alt, and that's not working for me, so that didn't work this time. So I'll just copy this and make sure you paste that 3 times. So 2, 3, now we have 4 of each. And now when I save this, we get a little bit of space around our text widget. Okay, I hope that isn't too confusing. Now, just to do the rest at the top, we want to change the fill color. So when something is selected, what should be the color? Like this, you can see how it looks like. So we are going to have the fill color, so you can have a read at this. So the fill color for selected toggle buttons. Okay, so for that, I'm going to go with a custom color, which is going to be a color of, so again, the default is 0xFF, and then from there we're going to go with a 298 F5E. okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and then save this, and then you can see, so now this is selected. Remember, the first property here says true, which means that we have selected that first item. Okay, so that is why that is green, and we need to change the color of the what do you call it, the selected color. So if this is selected, we don't want it to be this green because we can barely see. So the selected color is going to be let's say white, of course. So colors.white, and when we save this, if it will allow me to save, you can see that is now a white value inside there. And just for the fun of it, let's give this a border radius, so we can see we have border radius. So there are a lot of properties you can play around, and this takes in a border radius dot circular. Now if you go with something like 50% or 50, then you have this option. So if this is looking cool, if you like this, you know what, I would maintain this. So I'm going to deviate from the style that I created earlier. So just a little deviation for the sake of this. I kind of like this now, so hey, something like that. Now I notice this choose tip and then this, they are too close. So I'm going to give a size box here to get some space. So a size box of height, let's say, how is 20? And don't forget to put in your comma. Yeah, I think 20 is fine, or probably 15. You know what? Let's go with 15. That's much better. Okay, so now that we have this, let's go ahead and work on how we can get this to toggle. Okay, so we can get this to toggle in our unpressed state, because when we press, what do we want to happen? Now we are going to use something called a for loop. Okay, again, if you are confused about this, do not worry, all of this will be explained, but for now just try and follow along. So a for loop goes like this. We go with a for statement, we open up a bracket, we create a new variable of type integer. Okay, and then I'm going to call this index. You can call this I. That's the default is usually I, the convention, but you can call this anything. So, but I'll call this index. Okay, and then we assign a value of 0 to it. So the starting point of this is going to be 0. Then, as long as our index value here is less than, remember the list we created, the selected. Every list has a property called length, and this length property just tells us how many items are in the list. Now this for loop would do whatever you ask it to do within its body. It will keep repeating that till this condition is no longer true. So we are saying that we want to do something for as long as this index is less than what? The length of this. So remember, this has 4 items. Okay, so as long as this our index is less than 4, then we want to go ahead and then keep doing whatever we supply to it. And then the final part is to increment. Let me simply close this. The final part is to increment our index by 1, and we can do that simply by saying plus plus. Let's open up our brackets here. So we are simply saying that whatever we put inside here, we want to repeat that task for as long as what? This index is less than the total length of items of our list. Okay, so, and one thing I'll just mention before we go ahead is, when we work with lists, we have something called indexes. The index specifies how or where which each of these values are. So to the human, we'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I ask you which position is true, you say 1, right? To the computer, the index position of this is 0. Computer will always count at 0. Okay, it will always count from 0. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. So the index position or the index of a list is always going to be 1 less than the total number. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So the total index is going to be 1 less than the total number, which is 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's just by the way. Anyway, again, don't worry so much about all of that. So inside here, we want to put in a condition that is going to help us toggle all of these. Now, what we are going to do is we would simply say that our selected value, and of course this is a list, so I can use the square brackets to access whatever value. So if I say 0, so if I say selected square bracket 0, I'm basically targeting the true, the first item. Remember that what I just said, I'm just going to target this first item. If I say 1, then I'm targeting this. If I say 2, I'm targeting this. If I say 3, I'm targeting this. Okay, so but I don't want to put in a hard-coded value here. So I'm going to put in our index, and where is this index coming from? Right here, and we know index is 0, so that's not really a problem. Okay, so we are going to say our selected index here, so whatever index is going to be. Okay, we want to assign the selected index here, so we are getting this value. Okay, and we are going to compare it to our index. This is what we want to do. Okay, so we have an index here. So this is how the for loop works. Let's say this is a simple thing like 1 plus 1, just for the sake of the example. Okay, so once we have this, we come in here. So at the first iteration, index is 0. Okay, we get here 0 is less than this. This is true, the condition is true. So we go in here and we do whatever we want to do. When we finish, we increment index by 1, right? And then now index is 1, so 1 is still less than the length, which is 4. Remember that. So we come back here, we do what we want to do, we increment index, which is 1, to 2. 2 is still less than that, so we keep doing that till this condition is false and this loop ends. Okay, so what's simply happening here is that if the selected index compared to our current index is true or false, we simply assign the value here. So if I select this becomes true, then we assign this to the index value of true. Okay, very simple. Okay, so if our index here changes to 1, then when I select this, the index position of 1 becomes true. If this changes to this, then the index position, which is going to be 2, becomes true. Okay, that's just the logic here. Now if I do this, because we want this to be able to change in real time, we need to call in the set state. So I'm going to cut all of this and I'm going to call set state and paste it inside set state. Now set state, if you remember my explanation, the very weird explanation of the counter app, the set state is that guy that's going to trigger a rebuild by simply calling this create state. It basically says, you know what, something has changed and we need to reflect that change, so go ahead and rebuild. So if we click on this, it is basically going to trigger a rebuild of the entire application, this screen, and then when I click here, you notice how it changes. So when I click here, it recreates it and then put the selected index, the selected color and everything here. So we can see we have this working fine. I hope that wasn't too much to handle. And again, I just want to assure you, if anything looks confusing right now, don't worry so much about it. I would address all of these issues throughout this tutorial. Okay, so the next thing we want to go ahead is give some space. So let's get a height of about let's create enough space here. So let's say 50. Let me delete this, and then inside here I'm going to go ahead and then create a container. We are going to create our button. So let's get a container in here, and I'm going to give my container of height of, let's say, 70, and then the child of my container is going to be one of Flutter's buttons. So this is going to be an elevated button. Okay, and this also requires a child and an unpressed. So let's go with the child first, and this child is going to have just a text of calculate, I believe. So let's have a text in there, and then let's this text just say, let's make this uppercase, so calculate, just like that. And then the unpressed, oh, what's going on? So let's get the unpressed property here, and then let's simply close that like so. Let me save this, and you can see we have our calculate button showing like so, but I do not like the way it is. So what I'll do here is I'm going to give this a width, so my container a width, and anytime you want something to be as wide as it can, okay, occupy the entire width of your screen or so, we can simply say double dot infinity. So the width, I want it to be infinity, like expand as much as you can. And I'm going to save this, and you see how and what this looks like. Okay, not to worry so much, we'll come back and fix all of these. Okay, now that we have our button working, we can click, and that looks awesome. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and style this button a little bit. So we are going to say style, and the way we style this is a little bit weird, but hey, we are going to call the elevated button dot style from property, and in here you'll notice this is going to be slightly weird. The primary option here gives us the color, so let me just type this in. So color, I'm using a custom color again, so I believe this color is the same as the color that we use here. So let me grab this and then paste this inside here. Okay, and then let me So we have this color. So primary affects the color of the button. On primary affects the color of the calculated text that is there. Okay, that's what happens. And I should probably style the text to make it look nicer. So I'm going to go ahead and then use the style property and then call in our Google fonts. And then I'll still use Roboto. Like I said, font size. Let's say font size of 25 might be good. And then a font weight. So font weight, a font weight of about bold would do. And that's looking much better. And then I'm going to simply put a comma there. Okay, so I hope you're following along. I hope this is quite interesting. A sub and like to the channel would really go a long way to motivate me to keep making these videos. You know, not really easy. Anyway, so right after that container, I'm going to create a size box again, and I'm going to have a height, and let this height be 50 also. And after that, we are going to have a text widget, and this text widget is going to be our total, oh I was right, total bill amount. And again, same styling, so I'm going to style this, and Google fonts dot Roboto, and then inside here I'm going to go with a color, a custom color, just one of the gray colors we use. So I think I could go all the way up and just steal that color. So I'm basically grabbing this. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. I hope I don't go and mess it up. So I'm going to paste this in here like so, and I've messed something up, right? Expected to find a parenthesis somewhere. All right, so save this if it will allow me to save, and then we have that over there. So total bill amount shows right in there. And then after that, we can have text, another text widget. So let's go with, oops, not that, another text widget, and inside here we would pass in our bill amount of let's say so remember we escaped this, our dollar symbol, we say 0.00, something like that. And then I'll simply copy the style and modify it. Okay, so I'm going to paste this in there and then put this in, and I think the font size of this should be a lot larger, so 50, and the custom style here is going to change. So remember the 0xff constant value, but the rest should be your color. So this is going to be a 08502D. Okay, something like that. And then I'm going to also increase the font weight. So font weight dot bold over here. Or you know what, let's use not bold. So from the weight here, from weight of 100 all the way to 900, so these determine how bold it will be. So bold is just straight 900, but we can choose within this range. So let's say 600, okay, just for variation's sake. And then we have our value in there. All right, so after that text widget, we can go ahead and put in another size box, and then let's give this a height of, let's say 20. And then inside here we can have another text widget, and this would say tip amount. So this would be the tip amount, and then just like so, I'm going to steal this again So I'm going to copy that, paste this in there, just like that, and I'm just going to change the weight a little bit to 300, and then the font size, I'm going to make this 30. We don't need this to be that large. Okay, and I'm going to save this. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Actually, we should be using this color rather. So you know what, I'll just steal this. I copied the wrong one, and then I would replace it with that. Okay, so we should have, if I save this, we have tip amount. That's perfect. And now after this text, we can have another text widget, and yeah, and this text widget is going to contain the tip amount. So again, I'm going to escape my dollar symbol like so. Oops, I forgot my quotes. You know what, let me just do it this way, and then backslash dollar symbol, and then we have 0.00, something like that, if that makes any sense. And then we can now grab the style that we mistakenly stole the first time, and then we paste this in there, and then we can simply make those changes, make this 300 and then make this 30, and then I can save this now, and then we have that. Okay, looks like we are almost done here. Okay, looks like we are almost done. So one other thing, let me see, do I need to change anything? Yes, so after the total bill amount, I think I want to give a little bit of space, so let me have a size box in there, and let me see, what did I use over here? 20, so let's give that also, not 20, what did I use here? You know what, let me just ignore that. I think that's fine. That's fine, man. Indecisiveness showing all the way. All right, so we are almost done with our UI. Okay, and we would have to make certain changes. Of course, you can see this stretches, everything is touching, and you need to give some breathing room around your app. This is so close to the top. Okay, so what I would want to do here is I would want to give this some breathing room. Okay, so the way we simply do that is we are going to go all the way to the top. Am I already there? And then where is our body, if I can find it? So yes, right here we would wrap this column in a padding widget. Okay, so control period, and I'm going to wrap this in a pattern. What's going on? So that's strange. I thought I escaped this. What is going on? Didn't I escape all of these characters? That's interesting. Huh. Anyway, mysterious things happen. So I'm going to wrap this in a pattern widget, and I want to customize the widget for the top, okay, the left and right, but I don't want any pattern for the bottom. Okay, so how can we do that? So all simply means 8 8 8 8, spacing of 8 throughout. The way we can achieve that is to use dot from, sorry, not dot from, actually yes, dot from, but left, top, right, bottom. So the left I want 25, the top I want, sorry, yeah, top 25, my mind is all over the place, 25, and then the bottom I don't want any. Okay, I'm going to save this, and you notice how we get a lot of breathing room now, and this looks a lot cleaner, our button working right here. Okay, and one final thing we need to do is, if I click in here, our keyboard pops up. Notice how we get this yellow thing. This is this checked line. This is one of the things you would see a lot when you're building layouts in Flutter. This simply means that something is overflowing, meaning that you don't have enough room for a specific thing which you are trying to lay out. Okay, so the problem is when we show our keyboard, it is pushing certain things out of the way. Okay, so you can see these things don't have enough space, and you can see they actually have this inspect widget thing that can help you figure out what is going on. So something is overflowing by 24 pixels from the bottom. Okay, so if I wanted this to show, I would have to create 24 pixels of space so that when our keyboard pops up, it doesn't interfere, as you can see. Now, the way we can easily fix this is to make this entire screen scrollable. Okay, we make the entire screen scrollable, and we simply do that by going to our body widget, and whatever is there, we will simply wrap it with a single child scroll view. Okay, so control period to open this up. We are going to wrap this with a widget, and this is called a single, not a sinful, a single child scroll view. Okay, let's save this, and now when we open this up, notice we don't have any issue because we can now scroll this, and then we can see the rest of our items without any issue. Okay, that is just the idea. And speaking of that, I think let me give, let's say 10 here, and let's save that. Now let's open this back up and let's scroll this, so we have a little bit of breathing room right here. Okay, so I believe this concludes our UI layout. Oh, and just by the way, I'm going to change the color here. So I want to steal the color of this button. So let's grab this, actually like that green, and then let's go back to our app bar, and then the background color of our app bar, we paste this in there, and then we save that, and now that's looking a lot better and easy on the eye. So I hope this has been fun building, and like I said, I'm just doing this straight out, like messy. Notice how I haven't normal sense, you would not want to create everything in this main.dat file. You would want to move certain things away. In fact, this entire class should probably be somewhere else, but for now, for this simple application, this works. Okay, as I'll spend some time explaining certain things I have done in this video on their own, and then we'll see how we can refactor this, because if you want to build applications and you keep doing this, you would end up with a very long line of code. See, this small application has taken how many lines of code? Look at that, 183. Okay, just for this little thing. So imagine when you're building something that is more complex, you would end up with 500 lines of code, and you would have to be scrolling through, which is not going to be a good experience. So like I said, we are going to take time to review all of this, see how best we can make this a lot better. Okay, so this again, like I've already said, is going to conclude this tutorial on the UI. And oh, again, I'm at it again. Let me get rid of this debug banner. Let's make this false, and then let's save so that we get rid of that. So now this is actually going to conclude this UI tutorial. I hope you've learned something. I hope this was fun building. In the next video, we'll look at how we can implement the functionalities of these actually working. So guys, this has been Happy Cat. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course, share this.